Hey, this is Charles from IGN, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Tiny, one of the strength heroes in Valve's Dota 2 beta. Now, Tiny is supposed to be up at the front of a fight at all times. His auto attack is basically a punch. He hits people with a giant rock arm, and as you level him up, will deal incredible damage to things up close. He gets 2 active abilities and 2 passives, and his ultimate is actually a passive, and I'll get to that in a second. The other passive is Craggy Exterior, which as you rank up delivers a chance to stun and deal damage to nearby attackers, which means that if you're playing against Tiny and you're trying to take him down, usually a good idea to try that from range. Even though Tiny is supposed to be on the front lines at all time, he still can attack from a distance. One of his actives is called Avalanche, which basically sets down an area of effect, damage, and stun field, which is really effective to catch up on an enemy that is trying to run away from you, stopping them in your tracks and letting you maybe try to get closer to deliver an auto attack or something like that. His other active is called Toss, and this is a little bit more complicated. It throws a nearby unit through the air. Now, there are a couple things to consider here. It will grab whatever unit is closest, whether that's friendly or whether that's an enemy, and it will deal damage to the unit tossed, not a huge amount, but a little bit, when that unit hits whatever area you target. Now, this toss will also increase in damage as you level up Tiny's Grow, which is his ultimate. And every time you level up Grow, it is a passive ability that actually increases Tiny's size. So he starts out as a small rock creature, and by the end of a match, he is this giant walking mountain. Grow has a few effects. It slows down his attack speed, so he can't attack quite as frequently, but it does increase the damage he deals. So every swipe becomes all the more devastating to any opponent. Each rank of Grow also increases Tiny's movement speed, so he can get around a little faster, which is certainly helpful for chasing down opponents, especially since he really doesn't need that many hits unless the opponent has a lot of HP to kill someone. One thing to consider that while using Toss, because it deals damage to the thing that you actually throw, your teammates probably aren't going to be too happy if you decide to use Toss while they're the closest target to you, because then they're going to go flying through the air and you're going to deal damage to them. That's really not the best idea unless you desperately need to track down an enemy that happens to be fleeing and have no other way to do it. Now, Tiny is definitely someone you want leading the charge in a battle. He gets a lot of HP, can absorb a lot of damage, in his fully grown state can deal a lot of damage, and considering he does have a few options for stuns and distance attacks, isn't necessarily helpless if he's ganged up on. He can stun enemies, and if it's a caster with not a lot of HP and he gets a few hits in, they're probably going to start running because they're going to be dead very quickly. He's not necessarily the best character to use if you're just starting out. Even though he only has 2 passives, the way his toss skill works, because of the peculiarities of the enemies that it will pick up and the ways that you can actually use it poorly or you can use it effectively, that's something that there's a little bit of a learning curve associated with. But once you figure that out, once you figure out how to successfully use toss, anyone that sees Tiny roll into a fight is pretty much going to be terrified unless you have some decent team support. Tiny isn't the most complicated character, and once you figure out how Toss works, can be a lot of fun to use, especially if you like to get right into the middle of a fight and deal as much damage as possible. We'll be playing a lot more of Dota 2 here at IGN, so for more on the game, more coverage, and more hero profiles, head over to IGN.com.